Hey guys, Brandon Misleviich here. So today we're going to go over water filtration and what you should be looking at when you're looking at filters to put into your home food storage or your 72-hour kits, or looking for maybe future uses for base camp scenarios. So I'm going to go over a few different filter options as well as the types of filtration there are out there so that you know what to look for. First off, usually filters are going to be rated based on the pore size of the filter itself. So you can have 0.2, 0.1, 0.02. There's lots of different pore sizes, and those pore sizes generally mean they usually will adjust the amount or the percentage of the type of bacteria or viruses it will be able to remove. So let's just use a quick example here. So a Sawyer Mini filter. This filter is rated at 0.1 filtration. Now, if you compare that to, say, let's say a Katadyn filter, pulling up here, so the Katadyn My Bottle, this is rated at 0.2 filtration. Now, the difference between the two is not huge. Both those filters are going to remove over 99.99% of all of your protozoas and your bacterias. Now, the difference is the Sawyer Mini is going to be more, so it might be 99.99999%, whereas the Katadyn might be 99.999%. Now, there's not a huge difference. Obviously, it's still removing the majority of the bacteria that is going to cause a problem with you, and so both filters are safe. Usually what you want to look for protozoa is at least what they call 5 log reduction. So that means 5 nines, 99.999%. Anything beyond that is awesome, but it's not needed. Now, for bacteria, you want to look for 6 logs. So that means 6 different nines. So 99.9999%. If it's less than that, it's not a very good filter. You want to look for something that's at least 6 log. For viruses, for virus removal, you need at least 4 log reduction. So 99.99%. If you can find something that it's higher than that in virus protection, then definitely get it. It's just very difficult to find virus removal that is past 4 log, and that is because most water filters don't actually even filter viruses. Now, let's pull up the Sawyer Mini again here so you can take a look at this filter. So a Sawyer Mini has the 5 log reduction of protozoas and the 6 log reduction of bacteria. It does not, however, remove 4+ log reduction of viruses, so it's not considered a viral filter. It can't remove viruses enough to be considered a virus removal filter. It also does not remove 90% plus % of chemicals, so it can't be considered a chemical virus or a chemical filter. Heavy metals, same thing. It can't remove over 70% of the heavy metals, so therefore it's not a heavy metal filter. However, there is no charcoal filament inside the element, which means that it doesn't take out the trace minerals either, which means the majority of the trace minerals remain, which means your water remains extremely healthy and is able to give you back those trace minerals that your body needs. However, because it doesn't take out those trace minerals and it doesn't take out the heavy metals or the chemicals, it also does not remove the majority of taste. So if the water tasted bad before you filtered it, it's going to taste bad now. Now there is one exception to that. There is taste called green matter taste. It's usually caused from bacteria or the dirt in the water. That taste will come out. That is generally the taste that you find in water bladders, Camel packs. It will get rid of that flavor, so you don't have to worry about that, but it isn't going to remove any of the other kind. It also doesn't have any of the elements needed to remove radiation, so it's not going to be a radiation filter. And since trying to put salt through it, salt is such a small particle, it's not going to come out of this one as well, so it's not a salt filter. So this filter is primarily meant for bacteria and protozoa removal. Now, with bacteria and protozoa removal, what you need to realize is even though this doesn't do viruses, it doesn't do chemicals, it doesn't do heavy metals, 99% of the water that you're going to find out in the wilds while you're walking through the mountains, while you're going on your hikes, most of that water is only riddled with protozoa or bacteria. It is not going to have virus contaminants, it's not going to have chemical contaminants, heavy metal contaminants, or radiation. It's just not found usually. So even though this filter doesn't take care of those extra things, it will take care of over 90%, well close to 99% of the problems that you're going to find in a normal water source. Now, the cool thing that I really like about this filter in particular is that you can take a water bladder. This is the type of bladder you find in a Camel pack, and you can actually cut the tube in half, and it will connect right together onto that tube. And this allows you to be able to have water filtering as you drink it. So rather than you having a little tiny 20-ounce or 24-ounce water bottle filter that you constantly have to fill up all the time and then figure out how to carry it, you can actually drop your water bladder, which usually carries 2 to 3 liters of water, right directly into the water source, right into the river, the stream, the pool, pond, or lake, whatever it is. Fill up your water bladder, put it back in your backpack so it's easy to carry, and then it will filter as you drink it. Which means that this filter is ideal for somebody that is going to be hiking, somebody that's going to be river rafting, somebody that's basically going to be on the move. If you're going to be trekking in any way whatsoever, this is definitely a filter that you would like to have. Now, the big benefit to this filter as well, since it doesn't have any kind of porcelain element or charcoal element, it simply uses what's called nanotubing technology. It means that it doesn't have any kind of element that is going to go bad quickly through the filtration. So when this element when the nanotubing starts to slow down the amount of water that it lets out, you simply back flush the filter. It pushes out the majority of the contaminants that might be clogging it, and you get your water flow back. And what that means is that this little filter is going to be able to last you tens of thousands of gallons, if not closer to 100,000 gallons, which is what they swear on their website it is. Now, to give you an idea of what that means for lifespan, if you were to drink a gallon of water every single day, or use a gallon, basically they suggest a gallon of water use per day per person for your emergency stuff. That includes your cooking, sponge bathing, and drinking. But if you were to use that, a gallon of water per day, if you divide that, let's say you throw that into just into 10,000 gallons, not even into 100,000. You divide that by 365 gallons, so that's a gallon every day for a year. You're going to be able to use this filter for almost 28 years. Now, that's at the base. That's at the 10,000 gallons. Now, if you take care of the filter, you actually got the full 100,000 gallons out of it. That means that it's going to last you roughly 280 years, which means that this one filter is going to outlive you as long as you take care of it. So, awesome thing about it. And the cool thing is the retail cost on this is only $24.99, which means that the cost per gallon of filtration is 0.0006 cents per gallon of filter. So that is just awesome. Now, the next step here. So if we take a look, let's look at a comparison here of one that people look at a lot that uses similar technology. So the LifeStraw is a very popular filter. This is the same cost as the Sawyer Mini that we were just talking about. It's $24.99. The only difference on this, though, is the gallons that it can filter isn't 100,000. This can only filter 600 gallons, which is still a great price. It means that it costs you about 4 cents a gallon to filter, which is still a great price for filtration. It handles pretty much identical protozoa and bacterial removal. It meets the 5+ and the 6+ log reduction on that. It leaves everything else just like the Sawyer Mini. It's almost identical to the Sawyer Mini in every way, other than the fact that it can't last as long. Now, it also cannot hook up to any kind of water bladder. Now, this kind of filter is very specific in the way that you use it because no connections can be made to either side, which means that you're stuck using it as a straw, which means leaning over into a river or stream to drink out of it, or putting it into a water bottle and drinking straight from it like a straw. It's very limited in that source. So for something that still only does the protozoa or bacterial removal, this is a great filter, but comparing it to the Sawyer Mini that we just talked about, I would, especially since the price point's the same, I would definitely highly suggest the Sawyer Mini over the LifeStraw because of that change. Now, the micron rating is actually 0.2, not 0.1. So the Sawyer Mini actually filters better than this one does. Even though they both meet the log reduction that's needed to be safe for protozoas and bacteria, it does filter, the Sawyer Mini does filter better. All right, so let's take a look at the Seychelles water bottles. Now, these are phenomenal water bottles. These are also the ones that the LDS Church sells in their distribution centers. They sell it on store.lds.org. These are the ones that the church basically sends out with the missionaries, and it is considered one of the best filtration methods, portable filtration methods on the market. Now, the standard filter, this bottle has multiple filters that you can put into it that you can replace through it. Now, the basic bottle, the standard filter, is going to be very similar to the Sawyer Mini and the LifeStraw that we just talked about, where it gets rid of the protozoa and bacteria through the proper log reduction. However, this does have a charcoal element in it, which means it also meets the chemical removal, and heavy metal removal, and the taste removal from the water, which means that you get that added benefit. Now, because it has that charcoal media in there, however, it doesn't have the lifespan of the filter as the others do. So this filter will run out after about 100 gallons. And with the cost of the filter at retail, you're going to be looking at about 29 cents per gallon to filter with this. However, it is better tasting water. It's actually amazing tasting water. You can literally reach into a bowl of black water that's just disgusting out in the wild and filter it with this and drink it, and it's great. Now, of course, the downside is it is in a bottle, which is great for convenience, but it doesn't hold as much as, say, a water bladder does, like the Sawyer Mini does. But it is great for that aspect. Now, the Seychelles does have additional filters. I don't have a picture for that one, it looks like, but the filters for it. So the standard is the one we just talked about. However, you can step up to a viral filter, which does all the same filtration, but it now also filters the viruses. And the next step up is what they call an extreme filter, and that takes care of the viruses as well as the bacteria and protozoa like the previous filters, but it also now takes care of radiation. So if you're looking for a filter that does everything, there's only one that I'm aware of on the market, and that is the Seychelles Extreme Filter. And it still works in that same water bottle. So what we do in some of our 72-hour bags, we actually have this water bottle as a backup filter to our Sawyer Mini. And it has the standard filter in it. However, we have backup extreme filters, and that way if we ever come across water that's, say, coming directly out of a city, so we know that it might have chemical or viral contaminants in it, we'll swap it out for the Seychelles and start using the water bottle instead of the Sawyer Mini. Or if we're somewhere out near, say, an oil refinery or a mine area, which there's a lot of that out here in Wyoming, then we know that we also want to use that filter because there's a possibility of radiological elements in the water that we might want to filter out as well. So we have both those on our 72-hour kits. Every one of our 72-hour kits have a water bladder that's connected to a Sawyer Mini, and every one of our kits has the Seychelles bottle inside with a standard filter on it with some backup extreme filters. And that's just become our standard thing to do. Now, I want to take a look at just a few others of the systems here so you give you an idea of some of the other ones that people talk about a lot. So, Berkey's is one of those filters that I get asked about all the time. Is the Berkey good? Is it great? And hands down, a Berkey filter is probably one of the best filtration methods you could ever buy on a on a basic mobile or home use type of system that isn't going to require electrical input. Now, the Berkey systems, range from water bottle size all the way up to this plastic one you see on the picture here, which is a travel Berkey, which is identical to stainless steel ones. It's just a little lighter, easier to travel with, easier to take camping, that sort of aspect. Now the Berkeys are going to take care of all your protozoa, all your bacteria, all your virus, all your chemical, all your heavy metals. In fact, you can have an additional one that takes care of arsenic and a bunch of other ones that aren't usually removed with other filters. Now the Berkeys, although it is a great gravity drip filtration system, they do have one very simple flaw that is, to me, it is a reason why I don't use my Berkey, because I actually do own a couple of them and I don't use them anymore. And that is this right here. This is the filter, the black filter that goes inside of the Berkey system. This is the one that removes pretty much everything other than the arsenic and fluoride, which is what you want that extra white filter for. Now, this filter is a phenomenal filter. However, if you notice the connection point on there, it is basically a thin plastic screw or bolt, and it goes through the Berkey, connects the top piece to the bottom piece, and bolts on with a plastic nut. Now, it's great if it's just sitting on a table. I mean, we've gone 6 months of using it where it was fine. It was pushed into a corner, nobody could bump it, and the filter was great. But the first time I broke these filters, I was transporting the Berkey. I had actually taken the filters off the Berkey. They were sitting inside of it. We were moving into a new home, and I was carrying my Berkey into the kitchen. And as I picked it up, I was maybe 3-4 inches off the ground was all, and the Berkey slipped out of my hands. And basically, the Berkey fell 4 inches. In 4 inches, these black bolts snapped off. Well, these filters are extremely expensive, and they are actually the main cost of the entire system. For a replacement filter, you're talking about $100 to $150, depending who you buy it from. Which means I broke, in my case, that I had 4 of these black filters in there. All 4 of them broke. Either the filter itself broke in half or the bolt. And so I was out basically $600 because of a 3-inch fall. So although the filter is amazing, it is very fragile. This was the first time I broke it. We broke another one just a month ago. We decided to take out our travel Berkey because we were preparing to go camping. Had it sitting on the stool that was sitting in our kitchen, and our niece came over, got a drink out of it, bumped it, it tipped over, didn't even fall to the ground. It just tipped over against the pile of wheat buckets we had next to it. So literally standing straight, did about a 3-inch fall like that, landed against the wheat buckets, didn't come apart at all, but the black filters, those bolts, snapped right off and the filters broke. Unfortunately, right now, there's no way to replace those bolts. So when this happens, you're just out the money. So if you're going to go down the route of getting the Berkey, because as I said, it hands down is one of the best filters on the market. It's a little pricey, but it is hands down one of the best ones. So if you're going to go down the Berkey road, I highly, highly suggest that wherever you set up your Berkey, you make sure that the top and bottom of the Berkey are strapped against a tree, strapped against a 2x4 stud, whatever it's up against, whether it's out camping or in your home. Make sure it's strapped down. Don't take any risk whatsoever that thing could get bumped, because it is that fragile that you're going to end up costing yourself a lot of money. And if that happens in a survival scenario, you've now screwed your whole family because you broke the filter just because you didn't strap it down. So if you're going to go that route, it's great. Just make sure that you're prepared to take that protection. Now, if you want some other gravity drip systems, there are some other great ones. LifeStraw Family is a very similar filtration as the other LifeStraw. However, the LifeStraw Family actually does do the viruses like the other ones. The LifeStraw Family goes down to a 0.02, so it still doesn't do chemicals, but it does do most heavy metals, and it does do the viruses. So you're not going to get the taste out of it, and you're not going to get the chemical removal, but you will get the extra virus protection and the heavy metal protection with this. Now, the only problem that I found with this system is it does have a low flow rate, which is actually what that little pump nozzle on there is for, to help pressurize it so it filters a little faster. But the container itself does not hold very much, which is the problem I found the most with it. Now, the step up with this does 6,000 gallons, which is, again, phenomenal for a number. it would last a family of 4 at a gallon a day. It's going to last you just a few years, so it's great. It costs you a little less than it would cost you to run the LifeStraw. Regular LifeStraw was about 4 cents a gallon. This is going to run you just under 2 cents a gallon, so it's got a great cost for that. However, Sawyer again steps in with a better option. They have the .02, which is basically the same exact filtration as the LifeStraw family. However, because of their better way of doing the nanotubing technology, the Sawyer .02 does 250,000 gallons. So again, this would take a family of 4 more than they could even live to run this thing out. And the cost per gallon, just like the Sawyer Mini, this thing is 0.0006 cents per gallon. And I actually quoted wrong in the Sawyer Mini. The regular Sawyer Mini is 0.0002 for cost. So now the cool thing with the .02, this does not come with this bucket. Everything else you see in this picture it comes with. So it comes with the attachment to go to the bucket. It actually comes with a drill bit that you could manually or with a drill actually drill a hole into the 5-gallon bucket. And what you'll do with that, if you notice, it's kind of clipped onto the top. So the water level in there is sitting just below the tip of that nozzle. So when you want to use that, you just take it off the bucket and pull the filter down below the level of the water, and it will automatically start filling up whatever container it is you're trying to fill up, which is just awesome. And it's a very quick flow. You can fill up a large 24-ounce glass very, very quickly. It's not slow like a lot of the other filters are. Now, you could go another option. This is something that we've done once, and there are other people on YouTube that have done this. Now, what you'll want to do is on the bucket system, you'll notice where it connects into that hole. It's actually a connection point, kind of like the kind of like the Berkey, where it's a bolt that goes through with a nut on the other end. Now, if you get 2 5-gallon buckets, the lid that would go on the bottom one, you're going to put a hole through that lid and through the bucket above it, and you're going to use that same connection point that's on that previous picture to be able to connect your .02 into that. Now, instead of using all of that tubing that you see on there, you're actually going to connect the .02 directly up to that connection point, and that way it drops the filter down to a lower level to be able to use the gravity drip system. Now, the only problem with this is it's not like the Berkey. It doesn't filter from the sides, it only filters through the top, which means you're going to have about 6 inches of that bucket at the bottom that is going to be water that can never, ever be filtered, because it's never going to be above the point of getting into the Sawyer .02 to be able to filter itself. That is the only problem I've found with doing this kind of setup. And so that's why, for me, at my house, I have this setup. When we tried doing this other one, we actually chucked it because it just didn't work as well as we thought it might. You can try to flip the buckets where the filter is actually on the bottom instead of the top, and that will work. But what happens is it's now the opposite. So instead of 6 inches on the top bucket of water that can't be filtered, you now have 6 inches on the bottom bucket that can't ever be filled. So it'll filter everything in the top bucket, but it can't fill up past the 6 inches at the bottom bucket. And so that's where the problem comes in with doing it that direction. But you can do that. That is definitely an option, and that works very well for a gravity drip system if you do that, so that you always have water ready. But if you do that, of course, the bottom bucket, you're going to have to go down to Home Depot and pick up something that you can use as a spout to be able to drain the water out of that bottom bucket and fill up things. All right, guys, so the next thing I want to tell you about is Sterapen. I've got a handful of these. I've got them in a lot of my survival bags. Not all of them yet, but several of them. What this does is it actually uses ultraviolet light to kill the bacteria and protozoa that is inside the water. It also kills viruses. So it's not going to do anything for heavy metals, nothing for chemicals, but viruses, bacteria, and protozoa it does break down using ultraviolet light, which is awesome. But it's only going to do a small area at a time. So basically, if you've got a Nalgene bottle, you'd be able to put this in it, and it would filter the water in that Nalgene bottle. And depending on the size of the container, depends on how long you need to run the light inside the container, but it can be anywhere from just a couple minutes, from a minute to several minutes to, depending to longer, depending on how big that container is. Now, the ones that I've got in my bag actually come complete with rechargeable battery and a small solar panel so that you can actually recharge it while you're out there in the wilderness. And that's the one I've put in all my bags because it's, when the world breaks down, I don't want to have to try to find AA batteries or AAA batteries. This gives me a way to be able to recharge indefinitely. So awesome little tool. They will run you anywhere from about $80 to $200, so they're expensive. They're not cheap, and again, you can only do basically a glass at a time, not a large amount of water, which is the downside that I've seen to the Serapen. But other than that, it is just a phenomenal tool for being able to filter your water. All right, so potable aqua. This is one that a lot of people are familiar with. This is a tablet that you put into your water to filter it. Now, it's not going to take care of viruses, but it does take care of protozoa and bacteria very well. What should be noted is that the majority of the places you go in the United States, the bacteria that you need to be worried about the most is Giardia. Now, almost everywhere you go, the water is going to have Giardia out in the wilderness. Unless you find a spring, most water sources are going to have Giardia, and so you do have to worry about that. This takes care of that. Now, it's not going to take care of a lot of other things, but it does take care of that, which is your main concern. So I do suggest, on top of having, say, your water bladder filter, your backup Seychelles, I would have a third backup, and that would be bees. The bottle itself, once it's out of the package, takes almost no space. It has a huge lifespan for shelf life. So you just throw that at the bottom of your bag, and that way you've got a third backup water purification source that you can use in case there's some issue with the other two, or you lost it, or maybe you even had to downsize your bag so much for weight that you couldn't take the other filters with you. Then at least you would have this as a backup with you. It fits into very small spaces, so it's a great filtration method. They run about $9 a package, so they don't run a whole lot. They're not super expensive, and they do come with quite a few tablets. I believe it's 30 to 50 tablets, somewhere around that line, so you're going to be able to have about a month's supply of water use, or half a month of water use, depending on how much you use from that one container, one little bottle. All right, so next I'm going to talk about Katadyn filters. So Katadyn filters are awesome. They do take care of bacteria, protozoa, and viruses. Generally, viruses. You have to check some of the smaller Katadyns. They don't all do viruses, but most of them do. Now, the Expedition, that's this larger one that has the pump kind of handle on it. That one, as far as my knowledge is, it does not do viruses. It's protozoa, bacteria only. But the benefit of this one, this is called the Katadyn Expedition filter, and its idea is to filter a lot of water very quickly. So it has this big, huge hose on the end with a filter nozzle on it that you just throw right into, say, a stream or a lake or a 55-gallon barrel, and you just start pumping. And it starts coming out of that spout just like a regular farm spout that you might have in your backyard, and this is going to allow you to fill up 5-gallon buckets and other huge containers of water very, very quickly so that you can supply for a lot larger amount of people. And so that's where I suggest getting this. If you have a large group of people that you plan on providing filtered water for, this is a great option to go to. Now, if you want something more personal on a smaller level, the one above this in the picture, the Katadyn Pocket Filter, great little filter. It does viruses as well, but it's a much smaller system. So this one is much more for like a family of 4 or even just one individual person. But great for that. It does have a little more weight to it. It is steel, same with the Katadyn Expedition, and they are not cheap. The Expedition costs about $1,500, and the Katadyn Pocket Filter runs about $300. So expensive, but they do quite a bit of filtration. The Expedition does about 26,000 gallons, and the Pocket Filter does about 3,000 gallons, if I remember right. So great little filters. Definitely not the cheapest compared to, say, the Sawyer Minis and that, but they do take care of all the heavy metals, typically the chemicals. Because of the charcoal element in there, they also do the protozoas, bacteria, and of course a lot of the viruses. Now, there are a lot of other filters on the market that I've not mentioned. Now, I don't need to go through every single one on the market to be able to tell you the benefits of them. All you need to do is look up that filter, try to find their lab results or what they claim is the removal rate or log reduction rate of protozoa, bacteria, viral, chemical, and heavy metal. Now, if you're looking up a filter and you're scouring through their page and you just cannot find anywhere on there that it says how much it removes of chemicals or heavy metals or viruses, just in your mind, just come to the understanding that it does not remove enough of those elements for it to consider itself a viral removal or chemical removal or heavy metal removal. For something to be considered a virus removal filter, it must meet 4 log reduction, which means it must remove 99.99% of viruses. For chemical reduction, it only has to remove 90% of the chemicals, and for be considered a heavy metal removal filter, it has to remove 70% reduction. Anything above that is awesome and, of course, much, much better. The more reduction log, the better it is. But all you need to do is look at those reduction rates, and that'll tell you what it can do. If it has a charcoal element, it's going to remove taste. Okay, that's something you just need to know automatically. If it does not have a charcoal element, it's going to have a real problem with removing taste. If it has a porcelain element, that can help, but the charcoal element is what really gets rid of taste. So if you're reading through the website, it doesn't say anything about a charcoal element in there or a charcoal filter inside of their filter. Just know that taste is still going to remain. So if it tasted bad before, it's going to taste bad after. Again, the only difference to that is getting rid of what's called green matter taste, which comes from bacteria and dirt. Almost every filter on the market gets rid of that. The one that generally does not, that I mentioned here today, is actually the Steripene. It will kill the bacteria, so it's safe to drink, but the taste, that green matter, slimy kind of taste, will stay. So look at the types of filters before you buy them. Check it out. Go through and get that. If you would like to see a better price on some of the filters I've talked about today that I recommend for your packs, because of the research I've done into all these different filters, jump on our website, timeisnowevents.com, click on store, then click on emergency supplies, and you will see some of the filtration methods that I talked about personally using and that you can pick up from us at a discount. And if you guys have any questions, throw them into the comments, and I would love to do a follow-up video where I can go through and answer any of your questions that you have specifically about the video or any of the products, or even other products that I haven't mentioned. And I will do a follow-up video and answer those questions for you.